Hi, welcome. In this video, I want to focus in on some examples by way of Zach George interacting with a aggressive dog. And here on a live stream he put out here a little while ago, engaging his followers on social media. Here you're going to see him holding up his phone and attempting to showcase a dog that's in a muzzle. Again, I did a video on this a little while back. I encourage you to watch that as part of my Flipping the Script series. In terms of, again, of why it is that in terms of petting on a dog, emotionally connecting with the dog would trigger off an aggressive moment. I talk about this issue regarding relationship, in terms of again, talk about the core ingredients, influence and control. And once a dog has gained a level of control in the relationship, and then you, again, in terms of clarity, okay, in terms of the importance of moving forward in the relationship with a clear messaging, okay, in terms of relationship by way of leadership, by way of your role. When you get to a level with a dog that has become aggressive, okay, and you're sending a confusing message, okay, you're bringing, and here in this case, here you're going to see a dog in a muzzle. So understand muzzle represents control. And so the importance of making sure that those core ingredients that talk about influence and control are happening, okay, are brought into how you're interacting is really important, okay, because the issue about when you start to send a kind of a mixed message in terms of the type of conversation that's happening based on what's already been created in the relationship. And again, as we talk about dogs as social animals, even your emotions, okay, how you're connecting that way, will start to empower a dog. Okay, it represents weakness. Okay, a dog starts to take control in the relationship, and so this type of a connection, how you're interacting, once that's happening, once you're reversing course, it's really important, especially when dogs have hit that aggressive level, that you're not bringing confusion in that way. Certain moments where you're petting on a dog, you're going to see this here in this example here. But here's the thing, and again, I put out another video that's really helpful if you want to kind of see, even in terms of a trainer. You see Christopher Fraze. Okay, I put out a video on him as part of my Flipping the Script series, where he's knelt down beside a dog, an aggressive dog, and even how he's moving his hands on the dog's body certain ways, how that starts just like firing gasoline, how that starts to trigger off moments of aggression where he gets bitten, okay, over and over again. And so this whole thing about triggering off a aggressive moment will and can happen, especially when dogs have hit that tipping point. So the issue about clarity through your role in terms, again, of influence, control, leadership is really important. Okay, and the way you want to see this, again, just like the parent, I talk about parenting style, is like once a child becomes very, very selfish, okay, your role as a parent is really critical. But if you start to, jump back and forth between permissive and authoritative parenting style, you start to, create those opportunities for a child to say, well, not really sure here. Perhaps I can, take advantage of or push these boundaries. Okay, it's going to take you a lot longer, or you're never going to get to that point in the relationship where things are going to move forward the right way. Okay, so your role, understanding our role in the relationship, and this goes into dogs as social animals, is absolutely critical. How we think, how we connect that way, our emotions, and making sure that, again, when I talk about the solution, how this is all reconciled, comes by way of a intentional interaction based method. Okay, interaction based, okay, brings those core ingredients in, and the right language comes through the method itself. How that's expressed in and through the leash, how you're interacting, moments where the dog makes sense of. Say, okay, I understand, this is clear. So again, I'm gonna play some of this video. Again, this is part of Zach George, attempting to kind of put his phone up highlight, because again, there's a lot of there's a lot of pushback. Right? You say, well, Zach George, like have you even worked with an aggressive dog? Like show like show me what that means. Like show it. And here's this thing with attempting to show this. And we'll talk about this. These whole themes of bribery, accommodation, negotiation, how that's very deceptive in terms of appearances. Because but you'll see a moment here where you see a moment where the dog does flame up, does become aggressive as the dog has a muzzle on, and Zach George starts to pet on the dog's head. Because understand that's his initial, that's his first kind of response. And I understand a lot of trainers, a lot of individuals like this, like they want to meet with emotion. But that becomes a problem when you get to a certain, especially when you get to a certain level. That's a problem anyway, because it'll send dogs into that on that level of starting to become empowering the dog, starts to become aggressive. And then the issue about control itself. Understand that control, once a dog gains fulfillment that way and level control, a dog can be, aggressive and look balanced at times. Okay, I understand control offers up the image of a balanced dog because the dog's gaining fulfillment. Just like a very selfish child can look well behaved most of the day as they're playing their video games or doing what they want to do. But a question you have to ask yourself, again, this is the whole thing with starting to connect some dots, is that when is the truth revealed, okay, in the relationship, right? It's when a demand is brought in, when parental influence is part of the equation in terms of a parent-child relationship. It's a demand of, hey, pick up your toys, not because there's an exchange of something to say, well, pick up your toys and, here's a brand new Xbox game. And understanding that that's not necessarily a bad thing or, a certain level of kind of that thing happening if the relationship is good, okay? The child has the right attitude, but when the child doesn't have the right attitude and you're using that as your basis for assessing or change itself, then that leads people into a deception because you just can't go by superficial response that way. Understand that is the core issue in the dog training world. Understand that's a jumping in point here. It's not about approaching training as a intervention. It's not about, for these trainers, those two core ingredients, bringing those in by way of a interaction based method. Okay, this is all about using treats, emotion, and that leads people into getting blindsided. It's like saying, well, the relationship isn't going to improve, and then someone's still going to take the hit, like someone's going to get bitten, and then guess what happens then? Well, there must clearly, right? Because that's what these trainers do. Though there must be something wrong with the dog. Right? That's the default setting of these trainers, is to blame the dog. So again, play some of this. Again, this is from Zach George's live stream here, where he's fielding a bunch of questions on the live stream. People are asking questions about, well, have you worked with an aggressive dog?
Brilliant at is communicating to the general audience in a world of celebrities that are full of BS. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take that. I'm not one of these people whose inner satisfaction requires on being recognized as great. I do view myself somewhat as a science communicator, at least in this narrow field. I try to be.
Now understand, Zach Jordan, this is the thing about social media. He's a social media influencer, okay, in terms of just this whole thing about appearances, okay, this whole thing about, we're talking about the superficial idea of things. This is why, you go on social media is used as a vehicle, right, to, market this ideas based on superficial response. Okay, understand that, the whole thing about depth, there is no depth. Okay, these trainers don't connect dots the right way. And so they get on social media, and this is what they do, is like they just market this stuff. And they can get away with it because this is the culture. Understand that this is how the majority of trainers approach a relationship problem between dogs and owners, as a learning-based exercise, and then engaging a relationship problem by way of using treats and getting dogs to respond, and then trying to sell that picture as is to the public. This is how people get into trouble, with their dogs.
You should talk to a professional about this. Oh, I think you're talking to someone in the comments. Yeah.
This is a recent one, and I didn't know if you wanted to show more footage or not, but it's one I thought you might want to show, and it reminded me of Delta, so I also pulled up Delta.
Right. If you guys want, I'll show you some clips here of Delta. This is a rare instance where I made an error with a dog with a bite history and inadvertently triggered them to snap at me. So I instructed the guardian to show up with this dog with a muzzle, so that, because I knew the dog had a bite history with people, and so I wanted to protect myself. And so here you can see that I'm petting the dog. I'm engaged.
So right here now, yeah, I put up a video on this. You see this dog, Delta, okay, muzzle on. That's a good thing. Okay, is again talk about certain protocols. Devices are used in a way that is going to make it safe for a trainer, but they're also temporary too. But also at the same time, understand that when you put use certain protocols, certain devices, it represents control. Okay, so for a dog that has gained a lot of control in the relationship, has become aggressive, they aren't going to like it. Okay, so you want them to come into agreement with, say, a muzzle, right? And so if they're trying to rip that muzzle off, get that muzzle off, okay, you need to make sure that you're, providing clarity to the dog to say this is what you need to accept. Okay, and there's ways to do it. You can watch my videos on that. So here you have Zach George showing up. Now, pay attention to how he tries to reconcile this, because understand when I talk about even my series called Flipping the Script, okay, the reason I call it Flipping the Script because I'm flipping everything right side up. The interpretation of these trainers or how they try to sell and market what they're doing is completely opposite to what's really going on. Okay, understand context here is so important when it comes to dog training because, we talk about the issue about, bribery, control, okay, certain aspects of certain dynamics in the relationship, they're working off of those dynamics in a way that is not providing context, okay? It's setting people up to be deceived. It's setting people up to get blindsided by way of getting bitten. And so they'll step into a relationship problem. They'll be using these treats. They'll be, connecting through emotion. And then they're trying to say, you're good to go. You can trust, everything that's happening. But think of it too. This is why I talk about the parent example. It'd be no different, right, than dealing with a selfish child and a so-called professional coming in with the same type of idea of things into your home. And like Santa Claus, they have a bag of goodies over their shoulder, brand new Xbox games, everything that a selfish child would want. And they're just coming in. They're not sitting down, with you as a parent. They don't care about anything in terms of, depth of what's your parental role, the dynamics involved with that, the parenting style implied. They're just coming in and they're just doing, and understand this is hardwired in the dog training community. How can I get the selfish child, okay? And they're not even, understand this is in dog training, they're not even tying in behavioral issues properly. That's why I talk about even how the word behavior is being misrepresented within a superficial framework of response. They're not even connecting dots in terms of the relationship properly. So the word selfish child, they're not even connecting that properly. They're just coming in and say, okay, this is a learning-based exercise. We've got, some issues going on here, but they're not framing anything up properly. And so it's like coming in and getting the selfish child to say, just pulling the stuff out, say, hey, pick up some toys, make your bed. If you do that, you get this. So if you do A, you get B. And those responses, which can look great, think about the training environment now. It can look fantastic, so the selfish child's doing it. In fact, they're highly motivated to do it because they don't have access to the brand new Xbox game that just came out. And so they're flying, man. They're moving. They're picking up. They're doing all these good responses. And it's like the so-called professional saying, oh, you're good to go. I mean, you can trust those responses. The child's doing it. Just keep that going. Here's the bag. Here's the Santa Claus bag, and just keep doing this. And that's the whole framework for change. That's how they're presenting it. And intuitively something is not right, saying, well, this kind of looks like bribery. And but it plays into your emotions because if you're tied into a certain way of thinking already, in terms of your parental role, thinking a certain way, then how great is that? Because I don't have to, engage in, boundaries or, any level of discipline. Even the word no, is a problem, think about the dog training world, right? It's all tied into this bribery based idea of things that lacks depth. It doesn't connect dots at all properly. And so this sets up this blame shifting onto the dog as the problem in the end, because it doesn't resolve, it doesn't fix. Okay, it's not about relationship that way. It's not about your role that way. And so this thing here, it's happening here, and now Zach George is putting this up because this is the norm now in the dog training world to say, oh, because the question is, why does this dog, have a muzzle on in the first place? Because the dog has bitten. Okay, the dog has already expressed control that way. So, but here, there's a moment of clarity. This is where the context is changed here by Zach George. Because what I show was, hey, this is like, yeah, watch as this dog's hit that level. So as soon as he starts to, because his first go-to is to respond, connect through emotion. It's like permissive parenting, right? That's all this is. This is about, connection that way. But this through nature, it's not going to be taken well, because this is the thing about clarity now, because the problem here is the dog has a muzzle on. Okay, the owner's here present, the relationship's gone sideways, and then the contrast here, the kind of fire and gasoline moment, is what's associated through petting. Okay, what's associated through that level of connection for this dog has been, has been happening over time, is weakness and empowerment, control. And so this will play off of, control that's put on this dog in that moment, and what the dog is used to doing in terms of kind of doing what they want to do. And so this will create that type of intense moment where the dog will have a moment of aggression.
Engaged in conversation, not really thinking.
Now here, and I pointed this out, okay, if you replay this and pay attention, okay, as Zach George is petting, because this will provide context, as he starts to pet, this dog is nudging the hand to make it happen. It's like saying, you will pet me. Okay, so this is like that type of empowerment, type of connection happening where this dog now wants that. Okay, is desiring that. It's that type of thing. It's like dogs that will come into your space. They say, I want it, because it's a fulfillment thing. Understand, this is a whole different, this is the engagement level for the dog. This makes the dog, this empowers the dog to that type of connection to the human. So this dog's head will not, you see this dog's head nudging like, hey, pet me.
Right now, this is an error. This is wrong, and I did it. I want to own that.
See, right there. So that dog released, right in that moment. It's like, that dog had a moment of expressing aggression. Hey, because that flamed that dog up.
And so there you can see she snaps. She's like, get your hand off of me. What do I do? Do I grab the leash and start yanking? And
see, now here's Zach George trying to, he's trying to put his own little spin on why this happened. But understand that all his explanation comes from a permissive, bribery-based, emotionally based, superficial narrative. Okay, so whenever you hear these trainers try to explain stuff, they don't explain it. They don't explain it at all, because there's no depth anyway. So you're never going to hear clear explanation as to, what happened and why.
Cranking to shut the dog down? No, I step away. I de-escalate.
So de-escalate. So, part of the de-escalation, this is context, is by the dog gaining control back again through that owner. Because that's what happens. This is where, if you're in a bad way as a trainer with a dog, you have a dog, and say you take the dog as a trainer, and the owner's there, and the owner gives you the dog, you have the leash, and that dog starts to flame up and starts to go into high level challenge. One of the ways to, de-escalate, okay, think about this, is give the dog back to that owner. But the de-escalation part of that isn't about just de-escalation. It's about control, which means that by giving that dog back to the owner, it does de-escalate it, but only in terms of what's already been established in the relationship. The dog is gaining control back, okay, through that connection with that owner. And so that dog gains fulfillment. That dog appears balanced, right? That dog goes back to a level of calmness, but you haven't fixed anything. Okay, you've just prevented a bite. You've prevented yourself from getting bitten. I've done this before. Okay, but when that happens, okay, it's not like you're fixing anything. In that moment, you've just calmed the waters briefly, but but if you were to look at the way Zach looks at it, or lots of other trainers, they continue on this narrative of bribery, this permissive bribery based ideology where nothing ever does get fixed. Because all they care about is calming the waters. It's like a selfish child having a fit in a store, and a parent is desperate to get out of that situation, and they offer up, something, if you just, hey, once we go to the store, I'll take you to get some ice cream. And so the child becomes calm in that moment because you're appealing to their selfishness, but they're not seeing you properly. You haven't changed anything in terms of the relationship itself. You've just gotten out of that situation. Okay, you're not fixing anything. And this is no different here, right? Zach George said, well, and because there's not going to be a good explanation because it's not based on depth. Okay, it's not based on applying proper context.
It's of no benefit to me to address an underlying problem if I'm going to further exacerbate it and say, yeah, you were right to be feared. I'm going to kick your butt right.
And that's what these trainers do. So understand that they can never understand that whether it's force-free trainers or balanced dog trainers who are aligned with this idea of things, they can never reconcile the responses of dogs in certain moments to the relationship, to what's really happening. Okay, they can never do that. So oftentimes they'll take a path of bribery to calm the waters, right? Versus moving through that. Or if you de-escalate that way because you don't want to get bitten, continuing to, again, bring those core ingredients in influence and control, engaging through an interaction-based method that's actually going to fix the problem. You understand that's not what's happening here. That's not what happens with the majority of trainers. They just want a way out. And it's no different than if you're walking your dog and the dog is reacting to and going to the level of challenge because you're asserting a level of control over the dog at your side. People will look at, say, the collar. The dog starts to carry on, stresses on that dog, that choking behavior. But understand that, again, this is the problem with reconciling the response to the relationship. We'll look physically at, say, well, it must be the collar. A lot of times it isn't nothing to do with the collar. Okay, the collar does represent a level of control. It's about the relationship. That stresses on the dog. And so what people do is they'll put a body harness on the dog, then let the dog walk out in front, and then that will appear to fix it in that moment. Oh, the dog is doing better. Well, no, you've actually not fixed anything. The relationship's never going to get better, and then you're going to have problems. You'll see they'll start and they'll be saying, "What's going on now?" Because accommodation, negotiation doesn't fix anything. Just like the selfish child example. Yeah, you'll get out of that in that moment, but you're just playing into the emotions of everything, and you're not focused on your role the right way. The role itself is still misaligned. So, but that's the problem. It's the physical. It's mind and body. Okay, it's relationship. Those things tying together. But you'll never be able to gain proper context to this type of idea of things that Zach George is putting out. You never fix anything
right now, because now we've just validated it. And so throughout this is how I take an initial consultation when I'm dealing with a dog with a bite history.
See, and so he skips right over all that. So there's no explanation here, right? He just says, "Oh, I did something wrong," because in his mind, his wrong thing is, well, I haven't used the treats enough, or I haven't gained the dog's trust through this type of connection. So this whole thing about trust, even the context of trust itself, becomes the issue about possessiveness, empowerment. So I understand everything about the dog training world. It's about understanding context.
Letting mom hold the dog so the dog feels comfortable.
So you're letting the mom hold the dog. So like I said, dog has gained control in and through the relationship that way. So the dog will seem balanced, right? That, oh, okay, the dog looks pretty good. That's That's our framework. See, that's his framework. And just think about what I'm saying here. It's all context. So all to say that, you go through and, you start to really see things for what they really are. I'm not saying this is easy, because understand that, the thing you come up against here, even with dog owners, is that their emotions have taken over. Okay. Their emotions are leading. Okay. You have to reconcile your emotions, be able to step back and start to connect these dots properly if you want a better relationship with your dog. So again, I put out lots of information. I know this can be very challenging for people, but always consider the parenting example. Okay, that's very helpful when you start to see what these trainers are doing, because understand that they're putting this information out. It's total misinformation. Okay, it's all, there's no context here because they don't connect the dots properly. And what happens is you get in these situations, these trainers come in and you're not fixing anything. And then and then you're left stranded in the relationship. You're left managing a relationship problem, not fixing, and you're in this avoidance type of situation where you know that things haven't gotten any better. But the hope is, okay, and this is what I get people to focus on, is that no, this is fixable. Okay, that's the good news, but not through what Zach George is putting out there. And this is where we start talking about choking dogs, and so that's what they do too, is they'll play off of this permissive and all this confusion happening in the dog training world to say, well, if you don't accept what I'm saying, if you don't buy into what I'm saying, then you're a dog abuser, and that means that you're cranking dogs. No, that's not what this system of training is about. Okay, it ties in even the role of influence. It's proactive. Okay, its role, which makes sense to the dog. So it's about speaking the right language through the method. But understand, Zach George, he has no interest in any of that. Okay, these trainers made their decisions early on as how they're going to do this, and all they care about is popularity, views, and likes, because that's what they're in it for. They're not in it for the best interests of dogs. I don't care what they say. They can say all sorts of stuff on social media. It's total garbage. So again, go on, if you want information, go on, check out my website. Lots of great information about not just the problem, okay, but the solution as well, by way of a intentional interaction based method. Thanks for watching.